Thank you very much for that. Well, I'm going to jump back to the BBC, and I was extremely interested in this little article that was up sort of 24 hours ago. So the caption was, "My family in Gaza, solo vigil sparks protests." And it's a story about what was going on in a particular location in Israel. I was first of all interested to see who had produced it, because this is quite an emotive report, and I just wanted to know a little bit more about the journalist. So 2 names there were at the bottom. And if I bring in the first one, Gidi Kleiman, this person has been a staff producer at the BBC for 15 years, so they're extremely experienced. Education, the Reichman University, I wasn't familiar with that, so I thought I would just check that one there. And if we bring the university in on screen, this is the first private institution of higher education in Israel. And if I'll leave a bit of the detail on screen, people can freeze it and read it. But the important thing is it says it's unique in its educational methods, which are based on interdisciplinary approach and the teaching of information technology and global markets. It combines theory with real-world experience and provides its students with proficiencies. And one of the big things they're saying is that it's got alumni that come from many, ultimately go on to high-profile jobs and cover many different of areas. So key positions, government agencies, high-tech companies and financial institutions. And my simple point is that this journalist obviously should know a lot about Israel and what's going on, and has access to high-profile people. That's my simple point. But when I looked at the second individual, I was intrigued to find this. Now, this is Camera UK, formerly UK Media Watch and BBC Watch. And I'm going to say largely, in my experience, this has been a pro-Israel a group which has been looking at how the BBC reports things. So I was very interested to find the BBC's journalist linked with a critical article by this, which says BBC film on Lod promotes inaccuracies and raises questions. And if we get into it, these are some of the things that Camera UK has picked up. Now, I'm taking these at face value, but my point is that we have other people looking at how the BBC reports, and I'm going to ask some questions at the end. So let's do these points very quickly. Viewers are told that Lod is one of Israel's few mixed cities where Jewish and Arab Israelis live side by side. It then says, the criticism says, in order to come up with that misleading portrayal, the journalist had to ignore other places, including Jerusalem, Haifa, Akko, Ramleh, Yafro, and others. And also it says that the BBC mentioned the women, they're mentioned in the video as mothers of 3 and residents of Lod, but viewers are not informed that the one lady in particular is a former member of Lod City Council and an activist in the Hadash party, and a relative of the Lod resident Musa Hanuza, who was shot dead on the first night of unrest in the city. So we're taking these at face values, but this is very interesting analysis. And okay, that's just highlighting those 2 points that I've covered. Now, if we go and have a look at Hadash here, and we've just chosen something simple, Wikipedia. Hadash is a left-wing party that supports a socialist economy and workers' rights. It emphasizes Jewish-Arab cooperation, and its leaders were amongst the first to support a 2-state solution. The top also says that this is a far-left political coalition in Israel formed by the Israeli Communist Party and other leftist groups. So the criticism is that the BBC puts a woman forward without giving you background, which shows that actually she's highly politically active, whether you think that's good or bad. So essentially inaccurate, misleading reporting. But it goes on in the article, they talk about the curfew, which is imposed is just for Arabs. But according to the criticism by Camera UK, the 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew imposed by the police on May the 12th, this is a historical article, did not apply only to Arabs, and yet the BBC allowed that disinformation to stand. And if we just pop on through here, They eventually highlight a part of the film clip that's with this article, and it says BBC audiences are not informed that Hadalah is a partisan political NGO with a long record of anti-Israel activity. And the key point here is that the BBC is being disingenuous with both sides of a very highly volatile situation in Israel. And here we've got a pro-Israeli organisation criticising the BBC for the fact the BBC is not telling the truth. And I'm going to ask our audience today, is this just a failure of the BBC, or is the agenda of the BBC to help create the friction and have both sides at each other's throats? Remember that in Syria, BBC charity, BBC Media Action, was happy to state that they worked with opposition leaders in order to help their objective in challenging the president himself. So I'll leave readers with that analysis, but I find it fascinating that a pro-Israeli organisation is now saying the same things that we are, which is the BBC is simply not telling the truth.
Okay, let's